I think I got this quote from you, but it's from John Piper. It says, if you live gladly to make others glad in God, your life will be hard, your risks will be high, and your joy will be full. And obviously, we want this heavenly perspective in our lives, in our ministry, to see these divine appointments. But when we look around in our own lives, so many of the people, especially as leaders that we run into, they come to us in times of crisis. There's so much suffering, that happens in this earth. And I just like, if you could speak a little bit, a heavenly perspective, or how a heavenly perspective affects our view of suffering.
Well, I think one of the ways is in 1 Peter 4, where it says, brothers, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal you are experiencing as though something strange were happening to you. It's not strange. It's not odd. We really are people who live in this world, and we are aliens and strangers. This world is not our home, as Ricky said so beautifully in the message. It's just, and so when we realize this, then our expectations of how well life is going to go for us are not going to be that high. Our expectations are high because we know God. And God says that nothing shall separate us from the love of Christ. In that same context in Romans 8, he says, we're more than conquerors through him who loved us. He who gave his own son for us. Will he not give us all the more in life? What will he withhold for us? He's already given us the best he could possibly give us. And the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. Christ himself intercedes for us. So the groanings of this present time, the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed to us or in us. And the Greek word there can be translated either way. So if you see one translation that says to us and another in us, you don't think one of those is right and the other is wrong. It could go either way with that, and I think both are true. God's glory will be revealed to us, but also in us and through us, because the whole creation, Romans 8 says, is waiting for the resurrection of the children of God. And the whole creation that fell on our coattails. I mean, the animals didn't sin, right? Yet they suffer and death and all of that. Why? Because they were entrusted to our stewardship. We were the stewards who went bad, and they went down with us. But just as they fell and suffered on our coattails, so they shall rise on our coattails in the new creation. And do I literally mean that in terms of animals? I do, because I don't see who else Romans 8 could possibly be talking about when it says, you the people of the earth, and then the whole creation groans. And he clearly, when he's talking about the whole creation groaning and suffering, he's talking about someone in addition to people. Well, in Oregon, it would probably be plants that are suffering, or trees. However, most people would realize the only other thing in creation that would really genuinely could suffer is animals. So you have this redeemed creation that's spoken of in Isaiah in such beautiful ways, and the lion and the lamb and the goat and the wolf and all of these animals that will live in harmony. So, on the suffering question, I think the way we can best approach it is to say, all suffering for the child of God is temporary. It shall end, but it shall not simply end in death. It will end, and then we'll be in the presence of Christ forever, full of joy and anticipating the great resurrection to come. But the other thing that I would say is that for the believer, we should recognize all suffering has a purpose because God is sovereign. And he uses suffering in our lives to cultivate Christ-likeness in us. So the whole thing about gratuitous suffering, suffering that doesn't have a purpose, and all of that, I think for the believer it's no, God, we got to hang on to it. He causes all things to work together for good to those who love God. Well, is suffering included in the all things? Actually, in the context in Romans 8, it's talking more about suffering than it's talking about anything else. All things means all things. And I think when we have that perspective, then we say, okay, Lord, this suffering is brief. It's going to end. I will probably have periods of feeling better in this life, but even if I'm on my deathbed, I have all eternity to praise him, and we will, in retrospect, look back at our lives, at all the suffering, at all the things that we did not understand, and we'll be able to see the purposes of God, where we just go, whoa, Romans 8:28 was true all along. Now I said I believed it, but wow, I wish I really would have believed it, because now I see how true it was. And had I believed it, what more might I have been able to do to represent my Lord and bring glory to him?